budge on this. Let's bring in Josh Frydenberg, the Energy Minister. Thanks for your time this afternoon. Where is this at? AGL, as we saw there, making it pretty clear they don't want to sell. They want to keep this as part of their portfolio right through until 2022. It doesn't sound like it's budging, AGL. So are there any formal offers that are going to come forward?
Well, as you know, yesterday Alinta, through their CEO, Jeff Dimery, made contact with his AGL counterpart, Andy Vesey, and expressed an interest in acquiring the asset. And Alinta is the 5th largest integrated energy company in Australia, with more than 1 million customers and operations in every state and territory except Tasmania and the Northern Territory. So they're a very serious player, and they've come together with Manufacturing Australia, which represents some of Australia's largest employers, like BlueScope, like Brickworks, like Cement Australia, like CSR, like Dulux, like REM. In fact, they represent some 300,000 employees, both direct and indirect employees. So this is a significant development, and it's now incumbent upon AGL to talk seriously with Alinta about the possible sale of this asset. As you know, David, the Turnbull government has been concerned about the impact that the closure of Liddell in 2022 would have on the reliability and the affordability of the energy system. Liddell represents more than 10% of the energy supply into New South Wales, supplying more than 1 million households, and we've got formal advice from the Australian Energy Market Operator that should it close in 2022 without additional supply coming in, there will be shortfall and there will be a greater likelihood of blackout. So from the government's perspective, this is unacceptable, and that is why we would hope AGL and Alinta can enter into a constructive commercial discussion.
But again, where is this at? Because AGL is saying it hasn't got a formal offer yet. It would consider a formal offer. Do you see one coming? I mean, how do you break through this and get to the point where Alinta is putting a formal offer on the table?
Well, Jeff Dimery has said it publicly today that he will be putting together an offer that he puts forward to the company, and he would ask that they can then sit down and do due diligence on the asset, which is obviously a prerequisite to any sale, so that they can fully understand the state of the equipment, the state of the asset, after which they can then put a binding offer forward. That is the normal process, the normal way things are done with asset sales. And let's not forget that Andy Vesey sat down with the Prime Minister of Australia, the then Deputy Prime Minister, the Treasurer and myself, and made it very clear that he would consider the sale of the asset to another party. He then walked back from that.
But he's saying they need it until 2022. So this seems to be the stumbling block. He wants it right up until then. Alinta, though, wants it now to make it viable.
Well, firstly, AGL have gone out of their way to explain to the public that this is an asset in a bad state. You actually even had AGL's head of operations at Liddell saying it was on a sliding scale to oblivion as an asset. So they've gone out of the way to say that it is not in tip-top shape, and now they're saying that it's critical to their portfolio. So that does seem to be an inconsistency in their position. At the same time, Alinta has made it clear that they want to enter into negotiations with AGL and would provide them with the contracts and with the support out of Liddell up to 2022, and that could meet the needs of AGL. What is at issue here is how long into the future after 2022 Liddell can continue to operate, and Alinta has made it clear that they see 5 to 7 additional years of operation.
So there's nothing from AGL today that suggests they're interested in budging on this. I'm just wondering what you might be able to do about it. One of your colleagues, Craig Kelly, has suggested referring this to the ACCC to investigate potential misuse of market power. Would that be a good idea?
Well, look, I'm not going to enter into that terrain. What we've got here is two commercial parties that should have a constructive discussion. Alinta is very serious. They have the backing of some of Australia's largest employers.
Okay, but when you say you're not going to enter into that terrain, are you saying you wouldn't do that? You wouldn't refer this to the ACCC?
Well, I'm saying what we want is for the parties to have an honest, open discussion about the sale of this asset. Let's not forget, directors of boards, CEOs of public companies have a fiduciary duty to act in the best interests of their shareholders. And if they have an asset, which they've been very public about its level of disrepair, and you have another party that is willing to put significant money on the table to buy it, then it's only in the company's interests, let alone in the broader public's interests, for AGL to come to the table.
Are you saying there, Minister, that if they don't allow due diligence to be done by Alinta on this, they may not be respecting their fiduciary duties to shareholders?
I'm saying they have a fiduciary duty to properly consider the offer from Alinta, and we know that Alinta is very serious about this asset, and we know that they've already made contact at CEO level and that they would like to be sitting down with AGL in the coming days.
But AGL may well think it's doing absolutely the right thing by its shareholders. That's different to its customers. So again, getting back to what the government might be able to do, you could refer this to the ACCC.
Well, like I said, I'm not going to open that front. What we are focused on here is ensuring that Liddell stays open beyond 2022. That's clearly in the
you're clearly
interest
not
of the
shutting
public
that down, though. You're not ruling that out as a potential option for the government to force some action here.
Well, let's wait and see, David, as to what transpires between Alinta and AGL. We've got two major players in Australia's energy system. We've got an important asset. We've got advice from the Australian Energy Market Operator, and we've got a federal government that would like to see it remain open.
Well, indeed, but if AGL doesn't budge, and they're not budging today, again, it comes back to what, because I know the government wants this to happen. You want us to stay open, either AGL running it or Alinta or someone else running it for a few more years at least. So what is it, what powers are at your disposal? I mean, I don't know, corporations' power? It would seem the ACCC is probably your only serious avenue there, isn't it?
Look, I'll leave it to others to speculate on that. What I'm saying is AGL have a fiduciary duty to consider an offer from Alinta in the interest of its shareholders. We see this as an important issue for the energy system and its reliability and affordability. It's in stark contrast to Bill Shorten, who said that this is an issue for down the track. Mark Butler didn't even accept the advice from the independent energy market operator. We are focused on lower power prices, a more reliable system, and creating jobs that flow from that.
What about throwing some taxpayers' money at this, either to help Alinta, either to help AGL, deal with some of the upgrades that might be required? Is there any way you would open the taxpayers' purse to make this happen?
Well, AGL are making record profits on the back of high electricity prices. In terms of Alinta, we have said that this is not an issue in which the government will be financing their offer. Nor have they ever sought that from the government. In fact, Jeff Dimery said publicly this morning, David, that he's not looking for any subsidies or assistance from the federal government. He is looking for AGL to enter into a constructive and open and fair dialogue about the future of this asset, which AGL had previously indicated they would be willing to sell to a third party.
Now, can we turn to the so-called Monash Forum, your colleagues who are urging the government to build a new coal-fired power station, given no one in the private sector has done so. Can I get a straight answer here? Are you open to the idea?
Well, we believe that coal is an important part of the energy mix, but it's going to be up to the market to make the decisions about what they invest in, where they invest that capital, and
so
the nature of the generation. Well, what I've said publicly many a time is we shouldn't be demonising coal. that it will continue as it has in the past, play a vital part in our energy system. Unlike, again, the Labor Party, who says coal has no future in Australia, coal does have a future in Australia. And
as you know, these colleagues of yours are saying
be critical.
that. Okay, these colleagues of yours in this Monash forum are saying the government should build a coal-fired power station. So, as Minister, would you do that, yes or no?
The market needs to make the decision as to whether an upgrade to an existing coal-fired power station or a new coal-fired power station is undertaken. Let's make a
that
few
sounds like a no.
Points here about, but I want to make, well, we're not about to announce the building of a new coal-fired power station. What I want to make clear is there is a big difference, David, between new coal and existing coal. Existing coal assets, which have been historically built by state governments, are fully depreciated assets, and their only cost basically is the labour and the coal itself. When you come to new coal, these are very capital-intensive assets that involve boilers and turbines and water coolers. They could take 5 to 8 years to build and involve billions of dollars of capital expenditure. That's a different proposition to sweating existing coal assets like Liddell, or indeed, as AGL has announced, a recent upgrade to their Bayswater plant.
And as the Treasurer has been pointing out today, the running cost as well of one of these new plants is also considerably higher. I mean, what's your estimate?
Well, that's right. The levelised cost of energy, which is the all-in costs for renewables, and we've seen recent transactions around the $60 a megawatt hour. When you compare that to the new coal-fired power stations, it could be in the $70 to $80 plus. And if you add carbon capture and storage, it's even higher than that. Those are the numbers that we've seen from the Australian Energy Market Operator. That's not to say that coal has a role, and new coal or upgrades to coal has a role in Australia's energy mix. That's where the National Energy Guarantee will play a really important part in setting the right framework for the right investment signals. That
but on the numbers you've just laid out in terms of construction and running the thing, I'm not sure why anyone in the private sector would want to build one either if it's so expensive. But let me finally turn to the National Energy Guarantee you mentioned there. You've got a meeting with your state and territory counterparts in 2 weeks where you're hoping to secure agreement on this. Now, the parameters of this, your colleague Craig Kelly says the parameters have not been set, but you have indicated that under the NEG there will be 28 to 36% renewables in the mix by 2030, solar and wind providing 18 to 24% of that. You've said coal and gas will still provide 64 to 72% of the mix by 2030. It does sound like they are the parameters, aren't they?
Well, that's the result of independent modelling that's been undertaken by the Energy Security Board.
So they could change, those parameters could change?
Well, the parameters are a good guide as to what the generation mix will be under the National Energy Guarantee. And the key point for my colleagues and the public to understand about the National Energy Guarantee is it will drive down the wholesale price of electricity by on average 23%. So if you're a large supermarket, you could save $400,000 a year in your energy bill. If you're
but it all depends on where you set those parameters, and they're still being negotiated.
Well, we have said from the Commonwealth's perspective, we want the electricity sector to do its pro rata share of our emissions reduction target, which is 26%, 26 to 28%. And as a result of that, then you will get a increase in renewables from around 17% today to up to 32 to 36% by 2030. Coal will continue to play a significant role, and gas as well as a transition fuel. We have an all-of-the-above approach, a technology-neutral approach, but most of all we are focused on driving down the cost of electricity, and under the National Energy Guarantee, the average households will be $300 a year better off than they will be under the Labor Party's plan.
Energy Minister Josh Frydenberg, I do appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you.
Good to be with you.